The light had already changed twice before anyone noticed the man in the gray coat standing at the edge of the curb. He was not moving. That was the thing. Every other person on that corner was moving, shifting weight, checking phones, stepping back as the crosswalk signal counted down. But the man in the gray coat just stood there. His right hand closed around a white cane, his face tilted up towards a sky he could not see. The boy noticed, because the boy always noticed things other people didn't. His name was Callum, and he was 9 years old. And he had been sitting on the concrete ledge outside the pharmacy for the better part of an hour, eating the last half of a granola bar he had found, still wrapped in a trash can on 7th Avenue. He had learned a long time ago that being small and still made you invisible. People walked past him the way they walked past fire hydrants and newspaper boxes. They didn't see him, which meant he saw everything. He saw the light change to green. He saw the crosswalk fill with bodies moving east. And he saw the man in the gray coat step off the curb. Not because the light had changed, but because the crowd had moved and sound travels, and a blind man follows sound. He also saw the delivery truck that had jumped the yellow from the north side, the one the driver was certain he could clear before the intersection filled. Callum dropped the granola bar. He moved without thinking about it. The way you move when your body understands something your brain is still catching up to. He crossed the 4 feet of sidewalk at a run and grabbed the man's sleeve, not gently, not politely, grabbed it the way you grab something you are afraid of losing. "Sir," he said. "Stop." The man stopped. The truck passed close enough that Callum felt the pressure of it against his face, a wall of air and diesel that lasted maybe 1 second and felt like much longer. The man did not speak right away. He stood very still on the edge of the curb, and his hand tightened on the cane, and then he turned his head slightly in the direction of Callum's voice. "How close was that?" he asked. "Close," Callum said. "How close? The mirror would have hit you." The man exhaled. It was a long, slow exhale, the kind that comes from somewhere deep. Then he turned his face back toward the intersection and he said, "Thank you," in a voice that sounded like he meant it in a way people usually didn't when they said it. His name was Edward Calloway. Callum didn't know that yet. He would learn it later, and he would learn what it meant. That the name appeared on the side of a building 12 blocks north, that it was attached to a firm with 47 attorneys, that it had been in the city papers 3 times in the last year alone. None of that was visible from the curb. From the curb, he was just a tall man in a well-made coat who had nearly been killed by a truck and was now standing very still, breathing slowly, with one hand still gripping his cane and the other hanging at his side. "Do you need to cross?" Callum asked. "I do, then I'll take you." Edward Calloway did not argue. He held out his arm, and Callum took it. He had never done this before, never guided anyone anywhere, but it felt natural, the way some things do when they are simply the right shape for the moment. They crossed together on the next light, Callum watching the street the whole time, the man beside him moving with a steadiness that did not look like fear. On the far side, Edward stopped. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Nowhere," Callum said. Which was true. There was a pause. Edward turned his face down, toward the sound of the boy's voice, trying to get a sense of the height, the age. "How old are you?" "9. Why are you nowhere?" Callum considered this. "I'm between places," he said. "Between which places?" "I don't know yet." Edward Calloway was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I was about to get coffee. There's a place on this block. Will you walk with me?" Callum looked at him. He had learned to be careful about adults who offered things. He had a system. He watched their hands first, then their mouth, then their feet. Hands told you what they were planning. Mouth told you what they wanted you to think. Feet told you the truth. Edward's feet were pointed at the coffee shop. Not at Callum, not at the street, just at the place he had said he was going. "Okay," Callum said. The coffee shop was warm and smelled like ground beans and something sweet baking in the back. Edward ordered without looking at a menu and said, "And whatever he wants," in the direction of Callum, without making a point of it, the way some adults would have, the way that would have made Callum feel like a charity case being displayed. He said it the way you would say it about a person. Callum ordered a hot chocolate and a blueberry muffin. He ate the muffin slowly, pulling it apart in pieces, making it last. Edward sat across from him with his coffee and did not pretend not to notice, and also did not say anything about it. "Do you go to school?" Edward asked. "Sometimes." "What does sometimes mean?" "It means when I have somewhere to sleep the night before." Edward set down his coffee cup. He did not say anything for a long moment. "And last night?" he asked. "The library," Callum said. "They let me stay until 9. After that I found a place." "What kind of place?" "Dry," Callum said. "That's the main thing." Edward picked up his cup again. He turned it in his hands slowly, the way a person does when they are thinking, and the thinking is not comfortable. "My assistant," he said, "is going to arrive here in about 8 minutes. Her name is Nora. She will be alarmed. By me?" "By the situation. She is alarmed by most situations. He paused. She is also very competent and means well. I want you to know that before she gets here. Callum looked at him. Why are you telling me? Because I want you to stay, Edward said, and I think you're the kind of person who leaves before anyone can ask him to. Callum did not say anything. He pulled off another piece of muffin. Nora arrived in 7 minutes. She was a woman in her late 30s with short, dark hair and the look of someone who managed complex problems for a living and was good at it but found it exhausting. She stopped when she saw Callum. Her eyes went to Edward, then back to the boy, then to the muffin, then to Edward again. Mr. Calloway, she said. Sit down, Nora. Who is? Sit down. She sat. Edward told her briefly what had happened at the intersection. He did not dramatize it. He said the truck, the light, the boy, the sleeve. Nora listened with her hands flat on the table, and when he finished, she looked at Callum for a long moment. What's your name? She asked. Callum. Last name? He shrugged. She noted this. Are you hungry? She asked. He already ordered, Edward said. Are you still hungry? She said. Callum finished the last piece of muffin. A little, he said. She ordered him a sandwich and a second hot chocolate without making it a thing, the same way Edward had. And Callum thought that said something about the two of them, that they had a similar way of being decent without announcing it. What happened next took most of the afternoon. Nora made calls. She had a low voice on the phone, and Callum could not hear most of what she said, only occasional words, temporary, placement, tonight, flexible. Edward sat with Callum, and they did not talk about the situation. They talked about other things. Edward asked him what he knew about the city. Callum knew a great deal about the city. Which blocks were safe after dark and which were not. Which restaurants left food out in the alley. Which subway stations had unlocked bathrooms. Which security guards looked the other way, and which ones didn't. Edward listened to all of it without any expression of pity, which Callum appreciated more than he could have said. You've mapped the whole thing, Edward said, in your head. I have to, Callum said. That's how you stay okay. How long have you been doing this? 2 years. Since you were 7. 6, mostly. 7 by the time I had it figured out. Edward turned his coffee cup again. Your parents, he said. My mom died, Callum said. I don't know my dad and the system. I ran, Callum said simply. The place they put me, I ran. He didn't say more than that. Edward didn't ask more than that. There was a particular quality to the silence that followed, not uncomfortable, just full, the way silence gets when both people in a conversation understand something without needing to name it. By 4 o'clock, Nora had found a placement. She came back to the table with her phone in her hand and explained it to Callum directly, not to Edward, which he noticed and respected. There was a family in Brooklyn, licensed foster, had taken emergency placements before, were available tonight. It was clean, she said. The neighborhood was good. The couple had 2 kids of their own, both older. Callum listened. Then he said, What if it doesn't work? What do you mean? What if it's like the last one? Nora looked at him steadily. Tell me what the last one was like, he told her. It took 4 minutes. When he was done, she said, That should not have happened, and I will give you my card, and if anything like that happens, you call me immediately. My cell is on the back. She slid the card across the table. Do you have a phone? No, we'll get you one, Edward said. Nora looked at him. A basic one, he said. Nora, he needs to be able to call. She nodded, already writing something down. Callum looked at the business card. It had Nora's name, and below that, in smaller text, Calloway and Associates. He looked up at Edward. That's you, he said. Yes, Calloway. Yes, like the building on 48th. Edward smiled. It was a real smile, slightly surprised, which was the best kind. You know that building, I slept near it in February, Callum said. The loading dock. It's sheltered from the wind. There was a pause. I'm going to need to redesign that loading dock, Edward said. It's fine, Callum said. The grate keeps it warm. Just, the door on the left side doesn't close all the way. Someone should fix that. I'll tell maintenance. Don't tell them why. I won't. They sat there for another moment in the warm coffee shop with the light going gray outside the windows, and Callum looked at the card and at the man across from him who was looking toward him but not at him, seeing something that wasn't the room, and he thought about the loading dock in February and the library until 9 and the granola bar, the trash can. And he thought, this is a different kind of day. He didn't know yet how different. The placement in Brooklyn held. The couple, a man named Gerald and a woman named Paula, were quiet and practical and did not ask too many questions on the first night. They showed him a room that had a bed and a window and a small dresser. The window faced the backyard. There was a tree in the backyard, still bare from the winter but starting, at the very tips of the branches, to think about green. Callum put his backpack on the bed. He always kept it packed. Inside. A change of clothes, a photograph of his mother from when she was young, and her hair was long, a library card that had expired but that he kept anyway, a smooth gray stone he had found in Central Park and carried because it fit exactly right in his palm, and the business card Nora had given him, with her cell number on the back. He did not unpack the bag that first night. He sat on the edge of the bed, with it in his lap, and he looked at the tree in the backyard, and he thought about the man in the gray coat, standing at the edge of the curb, not moving. He had saved someone's life today. He was 9 years old, and he had been between places for 2 years, and he had saved someone's life. The thought felt large and strange, too big to hold inside, the way some thoughts are. He put the bag down beside the bed. He kept it within reach. He lay back and looked at the ceiling of the room that was his, at least for tonight, and he thought, okay. In the weeks that followed, Nora checked in. She called the house on Tuesdays, and she called Callum's new phone on Thursdays. Brief calls, just checking, just making sure. Callum went to school. He was behind in some things and ahead in others. Behind in math, far ahead in reading, which his teacher found unusual and his teacher's teacher found interesting. They moved him up a level in English. He read fast, the way you read when books have been the thing you carried everywhere because they are light and they are free if you have a library card, even an expired one. He did not think about Edward Calloway every day, but he thought about him sometimes. Nora mentioned on a Thursday call in March that Mr. Calloway had asked how Callum was doing. She said it plainly, like information, not like it meant something. Callum said he was doing okay. She said she would tell him that. She did not say more. But then in April, there was a letter. It came to the house in Brooklyn, addressed in careful printed letters to Callum. No last name, because Callum had not given a last name, and whoever had sent it had not tried to fill one in. Inside was a single card, cream-colored, with the Calloway & Associates letterhead at the top, and below it, in the same careful print, the loading dock door on the left has been repaired. Maintenance didn't ask why. I hope you're warm wherever you are. Calloway. Callum read the card twice. He put it in his backpack, next to the photograph of his mother and the library card and the smooth gray stone. Gerald, who had been passing in the hallway, saw him and asked, "Good news?" "Yeah," Callum said. "I think so." He did not elaborate, and Gerald didn't push, and Callum went to the window and looked at the tree in the backyard, which by April had leaves now, small and new, the particular pale green of things that have just decided to exist. He had not unpacked his bag fully yet. He didn't know when he would. Maybe soon. Maybe it would take a little longer. That was okay. There are some people who need to keep everything within reach for a while before they can learn that it doesn't have to be. 6 years later, Callum would stand in a courtroom on the 4th floor of the county courthouse, and he would be 15. And wearing a shirt he had ironed himself, and he would listen to a judge say the words that made the adoption final, that made Gerald and Paula his, that made the name on the document real. And he would think about the intersection, and the truck, and the sleeve of the gray coat, and the way the man had asked how close, as though the answer mattered. Not because he was afraid, but because he wanted to know exactly what had almost happened, wanted to understand the full shape of the thing he had been given. In the back row of the courtroom there would be a woman, with short dark hair, who was very competent and who meant well, and beside her an empty seat that was not empty in the way that mattered, because people can be present in a room without being in it. And Callum would understand that only some of the people who change your life get to see how it turns out, and that is okay, that is actually part of it, and you carry them with you in a different way. He had a phone now, a real one, not basic. He had Gerald's last name now, almost. He had a library card that was not expired. He still had the smooth gray stone. It still fit exactly right. And somewhere across the city, in an office on the 48th floor of a building, with his name on the side, a man who could not see the street below had learned, from a 9-year-old who had nothing left to lose, that the most important thing was to stop. Just stop, and let yourself be guided by someone who could see what you couldn't. That was the whole of it, really. That was what the day at the curb had been. 2 people at the edge of something, both of them, and neither one of them moving until they moved together.